They thought it would be a routine interview, a late-night sit-down between a controversial royal and a fearless host. But by the end, one was escorted out by security, and it wasn't the host? What happens when a prince used to deference walks into a studio where titles mean nothing? What happens when ego, legacy, and raw truth collide in front of millions? This wasn't just an interview, it was a reckoning. The studio lights of Real Time with Bill Maher shone like interrogation lamps as the production crew made their final adjustments. The air was thick with anticipation, not because of the crowd, but because of the guest. This wasn't a senator or an actor. This was Prince Harry, a royal turned rebel, a man who'd abandoned centuries of tradition and now wore defiance like a crown. Backstage, Prince Harry stood before a mirror, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored navy jacket. His eyes, cold and slightly narrowed, scanned his reflection. He wasn't here to be liked. He was here to be heard. His team had pitched this as a chance to control the narrative. But anyone who knew Bill Maher also knew that narratives didn't last long in that studio unless they held up under fire. Maher, seated behind his iconic desk, glanced at the cue cards and let out a dry chuckle. "A prince," he murmured. "Let's see how royal the ego is tonight." The cameras rolled. The audience applauded as Bill welcomed his viewers. "Tonight," he said with a half smile, "we have a man who walked away from Buckingham Palace but never quite walked away from the spotlight. Please welcome Prince Harry." The applause rose again, this time mixed with an undercurrent of curiosity, even tension. Harry strode onto the stage with a confident, almost arrogant air. He nodded to the audience but didn't smile. When he sat opposite Bill, he crossed one leg over the other and leaned back, exuding a casual dominance. "Good to be here," Harry said. "Not warm, not cold, just calculated." Bill cut straight to it. "So, Harry," he began, "how's life in exile?" The audience chuckled. Harry didn't. "It's not exile when it's your choice," he said coolly. "I left behind toxicity, not home." Bill raised an eyebrow. "Toxicity? You mean like palaces, parades, and titles?" Harry leaned forward slightly. "You'd be surprised how suffocating gold-plated cages can be, Bill." Maher chuckled. "Fair enough, though I'd imagine most of us watching wouldn't mind a few of those cages." The first few exchanges were playful but not light. There was an undercurrent, someone saying, something sharp beneath the surface. Bill shifted gears. "Let's talk about the book, Spare. You bared a lot, especially about your family. Some critics say you weaponized your trauma to sell copies. Your thoughts?" Harry's face twitched. "What I did was tell the truth. I didn't hide behind PR teams or palace statements." "But you did hide behind a $100 million Netflix deal," Maher quipped. Laughter. Harry's lips tightened. "Those deals help fund causes. Mental health, climate change. Maybe you've heard of them?" Maher smiled. "Oh, I've heard of them. I just didn't know advocating for the environment required quite so many private jet flights." More laughter. This time, Harry's expression hardened. "I suppose I should be flattered, Dad," he said. "You've clearly done your homework." "I always do," Bill replied smoothly. The atmosphere shifted. The next question came with surgical precision. "You once said you wanted to protect Meghan from the media circus, but didn't you kind of just move the circus to California?" Harry's voice dropped half a tone. "Meghan and I have created a space where we control the message." Bill nodded. Yes, and you're sitting here, in my space, trying to control mine." A brief silence. "You invited me here, didn't you?" Harry said, his tone sharpening. "I invite people to talk, not to spin," Bill shot back. The audience felt it, the air getting heavier. Harry shifted in his seat. Bill leaned in slightly. "You've called out the monarchy for racism, coldness, rigidity. Do you regret anything you said?" Harry's smirk returned. "No, I said what needed to be said. And clearly, people listened. Look where I am now." There it was, the first sign of arrogance. The prince wasn't just answering questions. He was delivering proclamations. Bill sensed it too. "Interesting," Bill mused. "You left the institution, but now you're building your own. Titles, press, influence. It's like you didn't leave the palace. You just moved the furniture." That one landed. The audience murmured. Harry didn't respond immediately. Instead, he sat very still. When he finally spoke, his voice had dropped again. You don't understand what it means to have your every move judged, to protect your wife from being destroyed. You sit behind this desk and joke, I lived it. And yet here you are, Bill said quietly, still in the spotlight, still selling the story. For a moment, both men stared at each other. No one in the audience dared move. The chessboard had been laid out, and this was only the first move. The tension in the studio hadn't eased, it had evolved. What started as a calculated interview now felt like a slow, quiet confrontation. Prince Harry adjusted in his seat, the flicker of annoyance from earlier hardening into something else, indignation. Bill Maher leaned back, swirling the pen in his hand like a weapon. His tone was still casual, but every word landed with intention. You know, Harry, he said, a lot of people feel bad for you. The tabloids, the paparazzi, the royal drama. But isn't there a point where sympathy turns into exhaustion? Harry tilted his head. What does that mean? Bill didn't flinch. It means the world's had a front row seat to your pain, your book, your series, your podcast. But people are starting to ask, when does the healing begin? And when does the monetizing end? Murmurs in the crowd. Harry's nostrils flared slightly, but he kept his voice steady. Sharing my story isn't monetizing trauma, it's reclaiming it. Bill offered a half smile. Sure, but when Netflix pays you $100 million to reclaim it, that story comes with a price tag. Harry leaned forward now. Let's be clear, I didn't write Spare to make money. I wrote it because the palace wouldn't let me speak. Bill countered smoothly. So instead, you let Penguin Random House do it for you. The audience reacted again, laughter mixed with gasps. Harry's smile was gone. You're being flippant about something serious, he said coldly. Maybe because you've never had to run from paparazzi with your wife fearing for her life. No, Bill admitted, but I've also never held a global platform and used it to settle scores. Silence. That was the moment Harry's composure slipped. Just a flash, but visible. A slight narrowing of the eyes. A jaw twitch. He turned to the audience, then back to Bill. You think this is about settling scores, he said? This is about breaking cycles. Bill nodded, almost impressed by the pivot. Then why do the cycles keep getting press releases? Harry took a breath. Because people like you keep asking the wrong questions. A hum of tension filled the air. Bill tapped the cards on his desk but didn't look down at them. All right, he said, then let me ask a different one. Do you really believe the public owes you something? Harry blinked. What? You've said before that the public betrayed you, that the media hounded you, that the monarchy failed you. Do you ever stop and ask, what do you owe them? There it was, a full beat of silence. Harry didn't answer right away. He stared at Bill, his fingers curled slightly on his knee. I owe the public honesty, he finally said. Even when it paints everyone else as the villain? Bill asked. Harry's voice hardened. If the truth makes people uncomfortable, that's not my fault. Is it always someone else's fault then? Bill asked sharply. The audience collectively inhaled. Harry sat up straighter, his voice sharpening. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You sit here trying to tear people down for ratings. Bill cut in. I call out hypocrisy. If that stings, maybe it's because it hits close. That landed. Harry's face flushed for the first time. Not just defensiveness, anger. He looked away, clenching his jaw. Bill didn't relent. Let's talk about Meghan, he said. Harry turned back slowly, his eyes narrowing. Careful. Bill ignored the warning. You've said she was targeted, mistreated, even driven to despair. I believe that. But do you think her critics are just haters? Or did you two maybe underestimate what the spotlight really meant? Harry's voice dropped an octave. You want to talk about Meghan? You don't get to question her resilience from the safety of this desk. I'm not questioning her resilience, Bill replied. I'm questioning whether you both understood what accountability looked like when you turned your lives into a brand. Harry stood then, not entirely but enough to shift the energy. His hands gripped the armrests. We didn't turn our lives into a brand. The world did. We're just surviving it. Bill nodded. Then why come back into the fire? Harry stared at him. To take control of the flame. There was applause, but it was hesitant, divided. Some viewers admired the comeback. Others noticed the edge in his tone, the flicker of arrogance. Bill Maher sat still for a beat. Control, he said softly. That's the word, isn't it? Harry didn't respond. The cameras rolled on as silence hung between them. Thick, electric, unspoken. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a battle of worlds. And it wasn't over yet. The studio was a pressure cooker now. The audience had grown quieter. No more casual chuckles or polite applause. Everyone could sense it. Something was about to give. Prince Harry's smile had vanished completely. Bill Maher's tone had gone from curious to confrontational, and no one knew how much longer either of them could hold the line. Bill shifted in his seat, glancing once more at his notes. But this time he didn't look down to read. He looked Harry directly in the eye. You talk about freedom, Bill said calmly, but you live in a $14 million Montecito mansion, protected by private security, surrounded by the press you claim to despise. Isn't that just another palace? Harry let out a short breath. You think this is about money? You think because I left one institution, I'm not allowed to have a home or privacy? I think, Bill replied, you want to be seen as a victim while living as a king. Gasps rippled through the audience. The camera zoomed slightly tighter on Harry's face, just enough to catch the subtle twitch in his eye. He didn't blink. You don't know what it's like to be hunted, Harry snapped. To have your wife, your children, dragged through the tabloids daily. Then why keep feeding the machine, Bill interrupted. Books, documentaries, interviews. You say you want peace, but you keep inviting war. Harry sat still for a moment, then suddenly leaned forward, his tone sharp, low and cold. You don't get it, he said. You never did. I'm not here to please you. I'm here because I have something to say. Bill matched his gaze. Then say it, but don't pretend it's altruism. This is branding. This is performance, Dirsu. Harry's voice rose. This is my life. Bill raised a brow. And you sold it. The air collapsed. It was the moment everything snapped. Harry's face reddened. He sat up fully now, staring Bill down. You're not a journalist, he said, loud enough that the cameras caught every word. You're a cynical entertainer who gets off on humiliating people. Bill's smile faded. His voice dropped to a whisper, more dangerous than a shout. And you're a prince who left royalty only to crown yourself the martyr of modern media. Tell me, when does the curtain fall? Harry stood. The studio erupted in murmurs. The tension had transformed into visible discomfort. Even the producers backstage looked at each other, unsure if they should cut to commercial. Harry pointed a finger at Bill. You don't deserve this platform, he said. You twist pain into punchlines. And you twist truth into narrative, Bill countered, still seated, unshaken. That did it. Harry looked off stage and motioned to his team. He didn't even wait for them to approach. He began walking toward the edge of the set. The audience was frozen. Everyone stared. Some looked down, embarrassed for him. Others just watched in disbelief. Bill didn't call after him. He simply turned to the camera and said, Ladies and gentlemen, that was Prince Harry. He came to speak his truth, and we just heard it, loud and clear. Harry stopped at the edge of the stage. Without turning around, he muttered loud enough to be picked up by the boom mic. This was a mistake. Then he disappeared behind the curtain. Silence. Bill Maher sighed and straightened his papers. Well, not exactly the ending I expected. The audience didn't laugh. It wasn't funny anymore. It was history. Prince Harry had reached the edge of the set, but something in him refused to walk away just yet. His team was whispering frantically behind the curtain, gesturing for him to exit. But the weight of the silence, the eyes of the audience, the millions watching live, the humiliation, burned into him. His pride anchored him to the floor. He turned back, one step, then another, and just like that, Prince Harry walked back onto the stage. Bill Maher watched him with narrowed eyes. Something to add? He asked calmly. Harry didn't sit. He stood directly across from the desk, arms crossed, tension radiating off him. You think you've won something here? He snapped. You sit behind a desk, taking shots at people who've lived more in a year than you'll experience in a lifetime. Bill stayed seated. Is that what this is about? Winning? You humiliated me, Harry barked. You ambushed me under the guise of an interview. Bill shrugged. You walked onto this set expecting to be worshipped. That's not how this works. You're not in the palace anymore. Harry's face twisted. I gave up everything for a better life. No, Bill replied coolly. You walked away and dragged the crown through the mud on your way out, then sold the dirt to Netflix. The audience gasped. Again. Harry leaned in, lowering his voice. Watch yourself. There it was, the threat. The threat no longer veiled. Bill finally stood. For the first time all night, his posture shifted. No longer relaxed, no longer smirking. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was confrontation. You don't intimidate me, Harry, he said. I've debated presidents. I've outlasted cancel culture. And I've survived people far more dangerous than you. I'm not dangerous, Harry sneered. I'm just done being polite. That much is clear, Bill said sharply. But let me be just as clear. You're a guest here. You don't get to hijack the show because your ego took a hit. Harry stepped closer. You're still talking like I haven't already destroyed your career tonight, he hissed. You think people will side with you after this? Bill raised an eyebrow. I think they just saw who you really are, and it wasn't the hero in your memoir. From the audience, dead silence. Not a clap, not a cough, just raw electricity. Security began approaching quietly from the side of the stage, sensing the shift. Harry's voice dropped again. You think this is over? No, Bill said. I think you're over. He turned to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode has taken a turn I never anticipated. We invited a guest. We got a tantrum. This isn't journalism anymore. It's damage control. And out of respect for this platform, our audience, and basic decency, this interview ends here. The studio erupted, not with applause, with disbelief. Prince Harry stood frozen. You can't end it like this, he said. I'm not ending it, Bill snapped. You did, 10 minutes ago, the moment you turned this into a royal meltdown. Security reached the stage. Harry turned sharply toward them. Don't touch me. They didn't. Bill spoke softly now, but his words hit harder than ever. You want privacy? Then leave. You want peace? Start with accountability. But if you think you can show up, insult everyone, and still demand respect, he pointed to the curtain, then it's time you learn that even princes don't get to rewrite the rules here. Harry clenched his jaw. You'll regret this. Bill didn't flinch. I'd regret letting you continue. And just like that, Harry was escorted off the set. No royal wave, no grace. Just the sound of expensive shoes storming across a cheap stage floor. As the lights dimmed slightly and the closing theme rolled, Bill faced the camera one last time. I think tonight we learned something very simple, he said. A title doesn't make a man, and entitlement doesn't make a point. Thanks for watching, and remember, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. The screen faded to black, and so did Prince Harry's dignity. So what do you think? Was Prince Harry right to defend himself, or did he completely lose control? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was Bill Maher too harsh, or did Harry get exactly what he deserved? And if you want more explosive interviews, shocking talk show walkouts, and raw behind-the-scenes drama, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and remember, royalty doesn't always mean respect.